Hello and welcome. You're watching Business Plus. I'm Shweta Kothari. We're bringing you stories from the world of business policy and economy. With me is Karthik Malhotra, Amit Ranjan. Good morning, gentlemen.
Good morning, Shweta. How are you doing?
I'm very well, but it appears that all is not well for a lot of companies, 3 subsidiaries of Dabur in the US, which has come under increased spotlight in the past couple of days. Litigations are pouring in.
Bad news, in fact, for Dabur early this morning, and Dabur in its regulatory filing has identified that as many as 5,000 plus cases have cited Dabur subsidiaries as well as certain products made by other industry players in litigations concerning cancers of multiple kinds, ovarian cancer, uterine cancer and other health disorders. Now these lawsuits are in the US and in Canada, and Dabur yet has not been able to understand or estimate what is the kind of financial implication that these lawsuits could have on the company.
Okay, and it's not just the financial implications which are a problem, it's also the Dabur stock that we've been tracking since morning today.
Yeah, so it's at 526, down about 1.5%. So it's hovering. The maximum it fell was about 1.9%. Right now it's 1.5%.
Okay.
So around 8 points at 526 right now. That much is in the impact. What they have said about these litigations is that they are still in the pleading and discovery phases. So it is still early stages. It is not confirmed. So things basically could change.
Okay. So from what I understand, these are hair products that are in question at the moment, and these are numerous litigations, not a class action suit just as yet.
Yeah, so what I understand, Shweta, there is a product category called hair relaxer, not relevant for me, so I don't know much about it, but there is a category of products called hair relaxers, and people who have, consumers who have used those hair relaxers have been able to, through whatever professional help they might have sought, been able to establish that certain chemicals used in the 3 subsidiaries of Dabur's which produces these hair relaxers, and these 3 subsidiaries being Namaste Laboratories, Dabur International and Dermo Viva. These 3 companies which produce these hair relaxers use certain chemicals which may be linked to cancer. Now there is obviously litigation in US is as in India a fairly long drawn process. But unlike India, there is a jury system in the US, and if the jury were to vote in favor of the plaintiff, then this is obviously bad news for US. I think the other issue that you raised, Shweta, is very important right now, that if the number of plaintiffs are about 5,000, that is a sizable number. And this 5,000, from my understanding of the reading of Dabur's regulatory filing, is perhaps not linked to Dabur's products alone, but there are 5,400 such cases under litigation in multiple districts in the US as well as in Canada. Now, if some of these pertain to products where Dabur or Dabur subsidiaries are directly involved in marketing or manufacturing or selling, then obviously, a good chunk of this could accrue to Dabur. Now, would this result in class action? We have seen enough and more class action suits in the US, and class actions usually don't result well for the company in the dock, and in this case this is an Indian FMCG giant Dabur which is in the dock, and in case it does reach a class action situation, let's not jump the gun right now, maybe it will get settled on its own, and it might not really hold water when it comes to the case that the plaintiffs build against Dabur. But if it were to become a class action, then obviously the financial implication on Dabur is going to be humongous.
All right, and so from what we understand, plaintiffs are obviously going to go after all of these companies, 5,400 cases in total, where formaldehyde was used as a product in a hair relaxer. Hair relaxer typically where you want to straighten your hair. A lot of people use them on a daily basis, likely to cause cancer. Those are, very serious allegations. Lots of people that I know of here in India also use them. But what's important to point out is that the entire process is in very early phases of discovery. The study is still ongoing, so it wouldn't be prudent to jump the gun to say whether it is true or not. But allegations of causing cancer, not just one type, numerous types of cancers.
And bad news overall for India, because we've seen issues with India-made cough syrups, we've seen issues with India-made eye drops. and now a large FMCG company in India in the dock in US and Canada. Not a great picture of India being painted internationally.
All right, so it's Dabur for now, and 2 more subsidiaries of Dabur which are currently in dock in the US. But another important story that we are tracking coming by the way of Air India. Air India is bolstering its capabilities here. We know that they will be getting at least 1 aircraft every 6 days. How many do they result in till end of December of 2024?
Big numbers, Shweta. So till end of 2024, 50 new aircraft to be added. So 15 months, 50 new aircraft. On an average, 1 aircraft a week. But a year, calendar year, has about 52 weeks. So there would be some weeks in which new aircraft may not arrive in India in Air India Express. We're talking about Air India Express specifically. So 1 aircraft a week, roughly 50 aircraft in the next 15 years, 170 aircraft in the next 5 years. And Air India is saying that it is likely to double its fleet in the next couple of months. So obviously in a bid to monopolize the skies, where Air India combined is a fairly distant second despite running 3 full-blown airlines in India right now. IndiGo commands a 63% market share, and cut to the next 3, all being owned by Tata Group, all directly, indirectly connected with Air India. There is Air India, of course, Vistara number 2, Vistara at about 10%. There is Air India at about 9.8%, followed by Air Asia, which is also the Air Asia India operations owned by Tata Group at about 6%. So overall, a distant second at just about 26% market share with 3 airlines, and now this Air India Express likely to add 170 aircraft in the next 5 years, 1 aircraft a week. I think the fight in Indian skies is going to be a fairly closely contested one. Okay. And we'll have to see if this mighty air power, firepower, engine power of the Tata Group and its investments by buying the government-run Air India and then these multiple aircraft orders that we are seeing both from IndiGo as well as from Air India. And incidentally, even Akasa, a later entrant, a much smaller player, just about 4.2% market share, also saying that triple-digit aircraft order, perhaps 75 orders by by end of this year itself is likely to come through. So overall, one thing is for certain, a lot of cash is being burnt in Indian skies. A lot of new aircraft are going to be taking routes which depart from or land in India. Air India combined, Air India Express also likely to bolster, strengthen its routes into Southeast Asia, South Asia as well as Middle East. So it's not just going to be domestic operations, it's also expansion of India-based, India-owned airlines outside of the shores of the geographies of India. So overall, the aviation space is going to be a very interesting one to watch. But I think what I would closely be looking out for is that can the might of the entire Tata empire take on IndiGo head on and at some stage become the market leader? Honestly speaking, I'm rooting for IndiGo.
All right.
Cheers to India startups.
Okay.
At 64%, it's practically a monopoly right now. 2/3.
I mean, as of now, yeah. So
I think let's hope a duopoly happens in some
yeah, so
time.
monopoly, maybe not monopoly, maybe too harsh a term right now at 63% also, because I think it's definitely a duopoly, because two bodies or 2 groups controlling about 80% plus of India's skies is definitely a duopoly right now. And we've seen that even Go First being kicked out of the skies did not really make much of a dent. Others have easily taken up that market share of
But hey, all of them
8%.
are, indigenized. They're all India startups. Vistara is India, Air India is India, Air, in fact, Akasa is India. So not just IndiGo there, which is an India startup.
Sure. I think IndiGo had, was one of the early bird startups. The rest of them came from large business families. Okay. Even at the time when Kingfisher was flying, Kingfisher came from the Malia Group. Vistara by Tata Group. Tata incidentally introduced aviation, commercial aviation in India. Air India was launched. The Maharaja was launched by Tata Group. So so hence my rooting for IndiGo, nothing else. I think IndiGo has been a real disruptor, and we've seen the kind of the kind of on-flight service, the kind of on-time services that IndiGo has offered. Hardly any delays, very few cancellations, and managed to remain profitable. Exactly, is something we haven't seen in other airlines.
Margins are wafer thin.
So it should not just be want of capital that knocks off IndiGo from the first position.
You know, and before we move on, what happens to Air Asia? Air Asia has been in news for a while now with pilots issue, with unable to service some of its routes. What's happening with, you know, Akasa, I beg your pardon,
right.
Akasa. What happens with Akasa, which has been in news recently, lots of issues, pilots leaving for Air India, not being able to service some of its routes. What's happening there?
So I think very simply put, you know, the management commentary, the statements that came from the management of Akasa said that there are pilots in multiple stages of training, and those trainings periodically would end, and those pilots would come back into the cockpits and would be able to fly aircraft.
So we shouldn't write off Akasa.
I'm not just yet. I think I'm not sure. Eventually, you know, it's a new airline, been in operations for just about a year or so. We will have to give it a slightly longer runway and see how the financial story adds up. Because at 4.2, 4.4, under 5% market share, pilot issues, new aircraft orders, which is of course capex, cash burn. We'll have to look at the financials of the company over a longer runway beyond 1 year or so to see some direction.
So literally give it longer runway.
Some tailwinds or some headwinds will be able to decipher only once we have a longer runway.
But too many issues marring Akasa just
but
at the
every
beginning.
airline for that matter.
Spice isn't a problem.
You know, we've seen aviation is not an easy business to run, not just in India, globally.
Absolutely. But IndiGo has got it right for some reason.
Has got it right and has sustained it right for a very long time.
Right. All right, shifting focus to a story that we're tracking coming by the way of banking space in India. Bank of Baroda has been in news, and for wrong reasons of late. The BOB World app, the mobile application of Bank of Baroda, there's been, you know, allegations. Some of those allegations seem to be true because RBI has taken action, and these are serious allegations. Before we run our viewers through what those allegations are, Bank of Baroda is also now starting to fire people who have been you know, part of this entire you know, system to defraud some of its own consumers, and the system per se, which wanted more applicants to come on board the mobile app, were not able to do so. What's happening here?
So I think, Shweta, yes, employees have been sacked. Some reports suggest as many as 60 employees have been sacked from across the country. We haven't been able to verify those reports independently ourselves. But, you know, we are talking about 5 dozen odd employees sacked. To me, that's a small number to begin with. I think, you know, it's easy to have the axe fall on the lowest common denominator. But I think,
they the lowest common denominator?
You have some ranks of even assistant general manager going up to that level. Nobody beyond an AGM, from what I've read thus far, has been sacked. And I think the senior leadership in the organization, those at the helm of affairs, need to take responsibility, accountability of this. And I believe some more heads need to roll, because this has been a serious lapse of consumer data, of corporate governance. Now, what really happened was, and this is not something which has impacted just 1 or 2 cases or 10 cases or something, a large number of bank accounts have actually been linked to fake mobile numbers. Using those fake mobile numbers, new app installs and customers have been onboarded using these fake mobile numbers belonging to the staff of the bank, family and friends of bank employees, linked to real bank accounts of real people who did not have a mobile number linked to their accounts. Apps have been installed, have been logged into, and then that number delinked from the account, linked to another account, and repeat the process over and over again.
So let me simplify this. Each employee of Bank of Baroda, and that is what is in the realm of speculation, and in news at the moment we haven't been able to confirm anything, but there was a target for employees of Bank of Baroda to onboard a certain number of customers to the BOB World app.
That's right.
To meet those targets, they got numbers that were actually their own numbers and started enrolling customers, or customers that may have been Bank of Baroda customer, may not have been, but
no, these were definitely
people,
Bank of Baroda customers. These were Bank of Baroda customers
without a number linked to them,
who did not have a mobile number linked to their account numbers.
Okay.
So in the back end, fake mobile numbers
were linked to a real
those
customer.
Real account numbers. The app was installed, logged into, because the OTP came on that real, the fake phone number, which is a real phone number but not of the account holder.
Right.
And the OTP came, you log in, and you repeat this, you delink the number from that account, link it to another account.
So you use the same number.
And you create that loop, and over time, look at the numbers. So the app installs jumped up between FY22 and FY23 from about 19 lakh installs to about 30 lakh installs. In the same time period, the number of users on apps, sorry, these are users went up from 19 lakh to 30 lakh.
Huh?
The number of app installs went up from 34 lakh to about 50 lakh. So, large discrepancy in the number of users and the number of app installs in any case. How can you have more number of app installs and less number of users in your backend? So, overall, Bank of Baroda has also admitted that there have been lapses. In fact, RBI on 10th of October had barred Bank of Baroda from onboarding any fresh customers on the BOB World app, which Bank of Baroda immediately complied with. Initially in July, when this news had broken, Al Jazeera had broken this news, Bank of Baroda had said that there is nothing much into this story and had given a statement in contrary to the findings of Al Jazeera. But now Bank of Baroda has come out and said that, yeah, there have been issues, the audit has been conducted, employees responsible have been sacked. My limited question is that it should not be just AGM and below employees getting sacked. This is a systemic problem and responsibility has to be shared by the topmost office, the cornermost office of Bank of Baroda. And I think some more senior level heads need to roll for such a serious lapse.
All right.
Correct me if I'm wrong. I mean, I could have a bank account in Bank of Baroda and not know that somebody else is operating an app on my account.
Because you may be one of those customers, Amit, who did not link a mobile number or did not update.
Operating my account from an app and I won't know about it.
So there are also unconfirmed reports suggesting that in some villages as much as 22 lakh rupees have been swindled using the same operation.
Okay.
So thankfully, you know, while there were sales targets, the employees at Bank of Baroda limited their ability to hoodwink the system only to achieve those sales targets and not any personal financial targets.
All right. But we don't know the extent of the probe just as yet. All we know is people have been fired and personal data compromise. I think privacy has been compromised to a large extent for those customers who were already enrolled in Bank of Baroda. Bank of Baroda customers, fake numbers linked to their accounts. Big
I think
allegation
simply put,
there.
a fraudulent activity has taken place.
Right.
If consumer data has been breached or not, we don't know yet. If employees have misused that data. No, you've linked a number on the back end. Have you actually gone into that account and seen the statement and done any transactions? We don't know. But there has been a fraudulent process, a fraudulent activity which has taken place. The bank has admitted to that. Heads have rolled. I just feel a far more number of senior level heads should have rolled in that list of 60, if that list
and
is
I believe,
correct.
I think a lot more information needs to come out in public domain. Who were these people? To what extent their privacy and their personal account details were compromised?
When we reached out to Bank of Baroda on the 11th of October to appear on our show in the Evening Business Class, Bank of Baroda refused to comment. And let's hope that Bank of Baroda does come on our show or subsequently openly in public and give a complete picture of what is
really
level of lapses that the bank has.
The lapses and the breach that RBI has also taken note of. Bank of Baroda, in fact, has also taken note of. But moving on to Russia, it's a story that is coming in by the way of Russian exporters who have huge sums of money stuck in Vostro accounts. Not 1 billion, not 2 billion, $8 billion. The money that has been accumulating for exporting of oil seems to be stuck there, not much use.
Absolutely. So for India, it pretty much seems like from Russia with love. So Shweta, I think $8 billion, not a huge amount if you ask me, because India's import of Russian oil for the month of August alone stood at about $4 billion. So 8 billion is what, just 2 months worth of oil which we've been importing from Russia for about 20 months now, and for the last 20 months Russia has been India's largest source of quenching India's fuel thirst, oil thirst. So Russia, of course, I mean, we have been importing in large quantums from Russia because of the discounts that Russia has offered to India and China in the wake of Western sanctions on Russia. But a simple problem that arises in this trade is, how do you settle trade bills? Because India cannot transfer rubles to Russia because of the sanctions and the swift restrictions in place ever since the Western sanctions. India is not keen to settle trade bills in the Chinese yuan because that props up the Chinese currency vis-a-vis India's, and Russia has not been very inclined to settling trade bills in INR. So as a result of that, there are these Vostro accounts. Vostro accounts are typically any foreign player, multinational player doing business in India can open a Vostro account with any Indian bank, and the trade or the settlement happens in that account, and that account can be operated by the foreign multinational, by the foreign exporter to settle other trade bills within the shores of India. So these Vostro accounts are now populated with a handsome sum of $8 billion. Not too much given the size of the trade, but $8 billion lying which Russia doesn't really know how to repatriate or what to do with. Now, what Russia has also done in the past is that it has used a lot of this money to buy India's G-Secs, government securities. So that has been an investment. But this 8 billion lying at present, difficult for Russia to repatriate and
don't know what to do with this
money and how to invest it.
All right, but does this mean in any way whatsoever that import of oil will take an impact? India will continue to import. Russia should not have a problem with $8 billion stuck?
Not at all, not at all.
Right,
no impact on oil. I think given what is happening in the Middle East, we will continue to, and the discounts that Russia is offering, we will continue to import more and more oil from Russia in the foreseeable future. So
the
no
oil
trade
relationship,
impact. I think just trade settlement is something that will have to be ironed out.
But if that number goes up, perhaps there's going to be
there were estimates that the number could be as high as even 10 to 12 billion dollars, but it did not bother exporters or importers. India is not a country that defaults. We haven't had a BOP crisis since the early 1990s.
Right.
So India is not a country that is going to default, and if we owe you, we will pay you at some point. How is the function of sanctions getting lifted, or you agreeing to settle in INR, or hey, make these investments in India? It's a great opportunity for you to do.
So the oil relationship not taking a hit there, but 8 billion worth of Russian money stuck in Vostro accounts. They don't know what to do with it. We're going to wind up with that story. Thank you very much for watching.